M2 Military Operations. Colonization of unprotected civilizations which are unaligned with any other group in space. They use planets for supply depots, slave sources, and biological materials. The exercise of domination and the enslavement of planetary populations is expressed as service to self, as opposed to service to others. It creates power for their group, but inherent in this process is a rapid dissipation of power in that civilization due to the limitations imposed by the games of limitations and negativity enforced on the popularity. In other words, degrading. It's a degrading kind of thing how they think after a while. Everything's degradations. According to what research has revealed, there are certain methods and plans that have underscored the literal invasion of Earth by various Orion-based species. Typical scenarios might be, for example, number 1, the target planet is timetabled for invasion. Number 2, the base station is moved within range. Number 3, long-range telemetry devices are sent forth for surveillance to ascertain the levels of development of the civilization and whether or not they have become a social memory complex. This could be defined as an aware society, its members generally aware of being aware, with aligned purposes, goals, programs. Number 4. Upon establishing that the planetary civilization has yet to align into a proper social memory complex, its members being aware that they are aware with aligned purposes, goals, and programs, covert operations move in with intelligence and science teams to begin an in-depth study of the planet. Number 5. Large electronic communication devices are placed in orbit or hidden on or under the surface. These devices operate on the levels of mental or emotional wavelengths. When a being is attuned to the typical Orion wavelength, they resonate to service to self, or praise for help to his God. There are computers that answer those calls with pre-recorded messages which appear to the lesser aware being as divinely inspired messages from a deity or angels. Number 6. Leaders are approached with population control programs or solutions to survival-related problems. Leaders are convinced that they represent an elite group that has been chosen by God to rule the populace for the good of God's empire. Look at any theocratic country on earth and you can see this. Number 7. In the event that the leaders are hostile, emphasis is switched to the masses in order to evoke replacement of planetary rule with elite from the masses, who are controlled by off-planet forces. Apparent reason for Orion-based operations. In accordance with service to self philosophy, goals are sought that will achieve more power for the elite or ruling class. It is important that more and more slaves be made, so that the psychic energy can be drawn off to feed the madness of the power elite. Domination and nullification is the basis of the game of struggle and conquest. It is a stable datum to negative Orion-based groups that empires can only be built and maintained on the backs of broken game pieces and oiled by the blood, sweat, and tears of worthless entities too decayed to be useful for any other task, and too rebellious to trust in more cooperative ventures. A tentative taxonomy of extraterrestrial humanoids. The information in this chapter was given to me by a lady who has experienced multiple abductions by both the types of entities described, and who insists upon retaining her anonymity. I realize that some of her statements are extremely controversial, and that the prudent course would be to refrain from relaying such explosive material to the public, since it is based entirely on unverifiable statements made by one person. However, I have now shared this with a considerable number of other abductees, many of whom feel that it correlates significantly with their own experiences, and that the information it contains is of such potential importance that it deserves a public hearing, which would be the quickest and most effective way to either confirm or invalidate it. Okay, this is a preliminary and exploratory attempt to establish a taxonomy of extraterrestrial humanoids, as I don't have any hard evidence to back up my statements. They must therefore be considered as speculation, though they are based on anecdotal evidence, which is, in my opinion, sincere and truthful. The two types I am about to describe represent only a small fraction of the many types, both short and tall, and of medium height, who are at present hovering above us or among us. The first explosions of our nuclear weapons at the end of World War II sent out a signal that brought in a veritable traffic jam of entities from many different regions of this galaxy and of neighboring galaxies, as well as from many other dimensions. Plus that guy from over there, North Korea, también, that added to the World War II thing. So anyway, as a comment. Okay, verifiable traffic jam. Besides this swarm of newcomers, we have been visited by a wide variety of extraterrestrial and interdimensional life forms throughout our history and prehistoric times. However, the following two types have not only been interacting with us since deep antiquity, but are engaged in long-enduring celestial warfare, which is also being carried out on Earth, in which our allegiance is a key factor. The first type is the short gray humanoids with large heads, which resemble embryos and average about 4.5 feet in height. They are from a solar system that revolves around Rigel. Rigel is a double bluish white star on the left foot of Orion, about 800 light years from Earth. They have problems with their glands, particularly with their sebaceous gland, which makes it difficult for them to digest food. These glandular problems were caused mainly by exposure to radioactivity during a nuclear war their race fought in the distant past many thousands of years ago. It is this type of humanoid that is performing most of the animal mutilation and human abductions, which has made a secret deal with our government, and which was in contact with Hitler. They derive nourishment from the glandular secretions and the enzymes they extract from the animals they mutilate, which they absorb through their pores. Our government permits such activities partially because of its acute fear of these beings, and particularly because it is under the delusion that they will give us technological information enabling us to attain military superiority over all the other countries in exchange for our permitting the mutilations and abductions. For example, like the big fight with USA and Russia or something. Okay, so the stealth bomber. The stealth bomber and Star Wars technologies are being obtained from them, and this is obviously back in the 80s or 90s or whatever. However, our government does not appear to realize that when it comes to the crunch, the technology that they are transmitting will not work as it is supposed to. It is not in their interest to give us decisive military superiority over the Russians or anybody else, or vice versa. It is in their interest to keep us in a state of unresolved conflict with each other. The old game of divide and conquer. And that guy fell for it. Or he was about to. So I'm smarter than him in strategy. Okay. If no animals were available, they could subsist upon gland extracts derived from humans. As a rule, they do not use humans in this fashion, but they could and would in an emergency. So in other words, they'll get their fixation from a human if they want to, in an emergency purpose or whatever it is, but they word it differently than what I would actually. Their attitude towards human is to tolerate us to the extent that we are useful in raising the animals necessary for their nourishment. Despite many attempts, none of our terrestrial animals, nor their frozen sperm or ovum or embryos, have survived the long journey back to their planet. They would not attack us with nuclear weaponry, as nuclear war would irrevocably poison or totally destroy this planet's entire biosphere, including any hypothetical human or animal survivors who would inevitably suffer from glandular problems similar in nature to those they are already afflicted with. They do have the ability to throw this planet off its axis, though. So don't fuck with them like that. You're talking to me? Please, whatever. I'm not worried about them. Yeah, those are Regilians, whatever. I'll attack and I'll fuck them up. Regilian technology, which is from Rigel, the star system Rigel. Regilian technology is more advanced than ours, but that is the only way in which they are more advanced than we are. They manipulate us through our laziness and ignorance, working under the instructions of a humanoid from Rigel. CIA and former Nazi scientists have developed and deployed malignant strains of bacteria and viruses, including AIDS. The rationale from the fascist point of view is to exterminate portions of the populations considered to be undesirable. The rationale from the Regilian point of view is to decimate the human population to such an extent that the survivors would accept open control by the Regilians. Like the Regilians... The Regilians are almost entirely devoid of emotion, but can obtain a second-hand high by telepathically tuning in to different kinds of intense human evolution, such as ecstasy or agony. This is not done for the purpose of sadistic gratification, as most of them are obviously oblivious to the difference between positive and negative mental states. It is a biochemical as well as a psychological process, used as a mood elevator. So they get essentially high off of our negative energy. Okay? Okay, let me get high because I gotta think about this one real quick. I'm getting stoned. Fuck you. Fuck you, aliens getting stoned, bitch. So they get high? No shit, they get high and they're supposed to like fly around in spaceships. No wonder they crash. You see that there, Cessna pilot? Over there, actor guy? Yeah, don't be getting high and flying around, capo. I got a feeling that they don't know how to land. It's pretty funny, actually. pretty fucking funny, actually. Dude, I got one on the aliens. Alright, 3-2. Fuck you, yeah, I win. I love this. I'm loving this. I mean, without the Burger King thing. But anyway, I'm loving it. Okay, certain types of unusual sexual practices attract these entities like flies. It was Aleister Crowley's sexual pursuits rather than anything else which attracted these entities to him to absorb the energies released. Crowley's was more effective as a medium than as a magician. Some of his diatribes about tramplings the weak were due to telepathic linkage with entities who were obtaining a vicarious high from the intense emotion involved in such diatribes. The humanoids that have been nicknamed Swedes are on the average between 6 and 6.5 feet tall. They are from a solar system that revolves around Procyon, a binary yellowish white and yellowish star system, and rises before Sirius in Canis Minoris in the body of the Lesser Dog, about 11.4 light years from Earth. They are from the fourth planet in orbit around the Procyon double star system. The tall blonde humanoids from Procyon and the short gray humanoids from Rigel have been enemies for many thousands of years. The tall blondes from Procyons have a benign attitude towards humanity, except for their strong disapproval of our inhumanity towards each other. This strong disapproval is further intensified by our government having made a secret alliance with their hereditary enemies in order to obtain even more destructive weapons systems than those already in existence. Our government is not interested in negotiating with the Procyon, as they would not provide us with weapon systems. The tall blonde humanoids carried out experiments that involved both artificial insemination and interbreeding with primitive humanity. Alright, the desired results was to combine the larger brain capacity of the tall blondes with the lung already afflicted with. Well, even they do have the ability to throw this planet off its axis. They're Brazilian technology. Okay, so they're pretty powerful, man.